Hello, welcome to We Never Met, the podcast where I have an interesting stranger on every single week. And today we have
Melanie Manuel from Celesta restaurant.
So if you could kind of summarize who you are or what you do in like a quick little thing so people can kind of get an idea of, you know, what you do, what would that be?
Well, I would say I am a restaurant owner and chef, and we create otherworldly vegan eats.
Yeah. And how did it land on, because I'm assuming you're a vegan, right?
That's right.
Yeah. It would be weird if like you weren't, I guess.
Like I eat steak in my secretly in my bedroom.
But I only want to have a vegan restaurant.
Yeah.
Were you always like that, or was it like a change as you got older? Or
Yeah, I've been vegetarian for 28 years.
Okay.
And then completely plant-based off and on for 8 to 10 years, depending on sort of my living circumstances, because I lived overseas for a while.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
you
sort
lived
of
in a lot of places.
Yeah, it's been an adventure.
Yeah. Yeah. What was your favorite place to live? First of all, where have you all been? Could you even list all of that, or is it?
So I am a military brat, and my dad was in the Air Force. So I was born outside of St. Louis, and then we were stationed in California, and then in DC, and then England and Germany, and then back to DC. And then I moved to Florida on my own for college.
Okay.
And they moved to Illinois. And then I moved to, I studied in Japan briefly, and then I moved to China and Germany, and then back to Florida. And now I'm in Milwaukee.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's, so when you were like moving around, how old were you when all that was happening?
Yeah. I mean, all through elementary and middle school. So I think there was sort of this really interesting nostalgia for what we called the States. When I lived overseas, all the kids would talk about the States, and we'd have our grandparents send us boxes of Jolly Ranchers, and we'd sell them for $1 at school.
Really?
Yeah.
That's an entrepreneurial background right there. Yeah.
It didn't work so well for me because I had a headgear, so I couldn't even eat the Jolly Ranchers.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was horrible.
For how long?
You don't want to know.
Because I had it for 4 years.
Oh, that's worse than me.
Not straight, but like I had the whole contraptions in my mouth. I had a whole thing in my jaw that pushed my whole jaw forward because I had like a severe underbite.
Underbite.
Yeah, my jaw was back too far.
That's brutal.
Yeah, it was rough. Yeah, it was like right in those years that you don't want. It was like 6th grade to 9th grade, right as you're like going through puberty and stuff, you know?
So bad.
Yeah, it sucked.
I think it teaches you though to be like, I don't know, hopefully a kinder person when you've experienced being made fun of for wearing a headgear for 4 years straight.
Yeah, and that's not the, I mean, I was like I was 4'10" in my freshman year of high school.
Oh, really?
4'10" and 98 pounds, and also had braces. So it was like, man, if you could like describe what a dweeb looked like when people said that word, that was me. That's pretty much what I looked like.
Well, you overcame it, I'm sure.
Yeah, I grew in a foot. Yeah, and then that was it. But so like when you moved all over the place, was it hard? Was it hard to do that and like pick up and leave and like meet new people and stuff like that all the time?
Yeah, yes and no. I think it was hard because I still don't really feel like I have a home.
Yeah,
you know, I don't
even
have
now.
Yeah, because my parents don't live where I grew up. So I went to high school in DC, and then now they live on a farm in Kansas. So, which was actually my grandparents' farm. So it's sort of our family legacy farm. But, you know, I don't go home and see all my old friends from school. And I don't really, I don't know. It's just, but then at the same time, it sort of forced me to be comfortable in different social circumstances. Sure. And I think other people haven't had that opportunity. So I'm not a person who loves to be on stage, but I'm not shy. Mm-hmm. And I feel very comfortable walking into most rooms and just talking to people and trying to relate to them because I was forced to pretty often.
Over and over again.
Yeah, exactly.
Every time you moved. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's something that I think a lot of people take for granted, including myself. It's like, you know, obviously I grew up in Milwaukee and I'm from here. So it's like, this is my hometown, whereas like you had like 10 hometowns, you know, as you grew up.
I'm kind of jealous of that though, because I have some friends from here, like a girlfriend I have in Bayview who talks about like the things they did and how much it's changed and the little secrets, you know, about every town, different towns people live in. And I don't have access really to that. So it's kind of,
but it also probably showed you like just how cool other cultures are and stuff,
For
which is
sure.
like a big thing at your restaurant, you know, the international cuisine that you make all the time. That has to be right influenced by kind of traveling so much.
Yeah. Thanks for making that connection. That's
Yeah.
absolutely something that inspires me about food is allowing people to have sort of an experience
Right.
on the plate.
Yeah.
And even if they can't go there, they can, I don't know, have a small
kind
taste
of,
of
yeah.
it.
Yeah. Kind of make that. What has been your favorite place? Like,
Oh yeah. Back to that question.
oh yeah, I forgot
Sorry.
we got on a tangent. But,
I would say it's a cross between, you know, China and Germany. I mean, Berlin, where I lived, was such an amazing experience. You know, I was super broke. I owned 2 pair of pants for like 3 years.
that's the way to do it. Just keep washing them. It's fine.
Yeah. And I just, but there was art on the street, you know, and
Yeah.
people playing music late at night. And I lived in the Turkish district and just walking outside on Saturdays and everybody's grilling, you know, in the parks and little kids are playing Frisbee and people playing guitar and, you know, drinking wine. And it's just a very, I don't know. It was a great city to live in.
Yeah, because you taught English there, right?
I did, yeah. Same in China. That's what brought me around the world as an adult. In China, I worked at a private school.
Okay.
So we lived on campus. So there were 5. They called us foreigners. I'm doing air quotes right now. And there were 1,200 students.
Wow.
No, that's wrong.
Wait,
there were 12,000 students.
But
It was
1,200 is still a lot for 5.
yeah,
There's
no,
only
there
5
were
teachers?
12,000 students. 800 Chinese teachers. That's what
I was
they
gonna
called
say,
them
it
there.
was just you guys.
And there were 5 foreigners that we foreign teachers. So it was like a small city.
Yeah, that's
with
a lot of people.
Yeah, and they had fencing around it. So it was really.
What grade level is this?
I taught kindergarten and then I taught sort of a middle school equivalent.
Okay.
And it was like their English class and they wanted it to be full immersion. So I would come in and in English say, "Hi, good morning.
Yeah.
What's your name?" You know, and some students were quite advanced and others had very little experience with English, but there was always a Chinese teacher in the room who also had varied degrees of experience with English.
Right.
But one gentleman was really wonderful and he was really kind and he was a great teacher and the kids loved him and he really cared about them learning the language. And so toward the end of my time there, he said, "Melanie, will you please sing us an American song?" And I was super caught off guard. I was like 22, you know, and all these like 14-year-old kids are staring at me.
Just waiting for the song.
I sang Yankee Doodle.
A classic American tune.
Classic, yeah, everybody's fave. Yeah. And then he said, "What does it mean?" So I
That's a
said,
good question. I don't even know.
"This guy rides on a horse and then he puts a feather in his hat, but he calls it macaroni. And macaroni is a type of noodle." And then I realized, like, I don't know
What does this even mean?
Yankee Doodle is about. Why did I say
This is such a bizarre song when you break it down.
Yeah, it was
you know?
not my shining moment.
How's your singing voice?
Give me a couple beers and then I'll sing a Yankee Doodle for you.
Do some karaoke.
Yeah, exactly.
Only Yankee Doodle, though.
Yeah.
So going back to your parents, so they live on a farm
Mm-hmm.
now. What are they growing there? Do they have like animals and stuff?
Yeah. So my parents, my grandparents lived on this farm. They bought it in the 70s and remodeled it. It's a 19th century farmhouse.
Oh, that's really cool.
It was built in 1878. Yeah, it's really neat. It's limestone, which is a really common rock in that area.
Yeah.
And, you know, Kansas has a particular reputation. Sometimes that's warranted, but it's also a really complicated place.
What is the reputation of Kansas?
Well, I think people think of Kansas as very conservative and sort of slow pokey farm town.
Yeah.
And it is that way in some senses, but it also has this really rich settlement history and history of indigenous peoples. And the valley where my parents live was like founded by, I don't know, all these really interesting characters, but they own 80 acres.
Wow.
And they lease out some of the farmland for some farmers. One of the gentlemen who farms the land is 80.
He still farms?
Yeah, he still farms.
Good for you, man.
He's really cool. Yeah, he's a really nice gentleman. And then my parents just have like a garden for themselves, but they grow beets and asparagus and tomatoes and they have an orchard. And
are they into food too? Like, did they influence you to like start, you know, were you into food from an early age? Like, were you into all that?
I was into eating.
Yeah, me too. I still am.
Yeah, I was. I think I always just love to cook. It's
Yeah.
a way to be creative for me. And I think a lot of people, when I first became vegan, when I was, I don't know, maybe 20 or 19, you had to cook because there was nothing to eat.
Right. There's not like the stuff they have in stores now and all this, vegan friendly things, I'm assuming.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we would, I was really involved with the music scene in Florida where I was going to college, and we would all get together and just cook big meals, and bands would play and we'd eat afterwards. And
that's cool.
Sometimes it was like spaghetti and tomato sauce because we were broke, but it kind of forced you to, I don't know.
Like to be creative.
Yeah, exactly.
And think outside the box. So when you are making like international dishes, are they, I don't know the right way to put this, but are they like the way they would cook it in that country, or is it like a twist on that dish?
I would say usually they're not authentic, because they're vegan.
Well, that's true too. Yeah.
So I think that's part of the fun, actually. So for example, I make a schnitzel, and I've actually never had real schnitzel because I haven't eaten meat. When I first encountered it, I wasn't eating meat.
Yeah.
But we bread it and fry it and make a gravy and make come gnocchi or spätzle or something.
Yeah.
Just sort of like the traditional German way. So
yeah,
it's different and yet the same. And same with some of the Asian. I really like Asian flavors. So some of the Asian dishes we create are sort of twists on it, or maybe make them more accessible or palatable to, the palate here.
Yeah, because I feel like your job is like 10 times harder than any other chef's job, because if another chef was like, I want this to be like chicken, they can just literally get chicken and do it. You had to be like, okay, how can I make it like that? How do you even figure that out, or like get into that way of cooking? Because I never could figure that out, probably.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question, and some people think fake meats are really weird.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What do they base mostly on?
Yeah. So there's different approaches you can take. Obviously, tofu can be manipulated in a lot of really interesting ways because it takes on so many flavors so easily. I really like working with seitan. Seitan is a wheat gluten-based product.
Okay.
And a lot of people are fearful of gluten, but I think it's a really misunderstood.
Yeah.
So gluten is just the protein portion in flour. So if you were to take white flour and rinse it, make dough, just mix it with water and rinse it under the sink and keep rinsing it, all the starch would rinse away.
Okay.
And you'd have this blob of stretchy material, and that's gluten. So there's nothing like inherently wrong with gluten. Just some people
don't process it as well.
Yeah, exactly. Just like some people get indigestion with eating lentils,
or dairy or whatever.
Or dairy. Yeah. Exactly. So it's very high in protein. There's no cholesterol, and you can make it taste like anything.
Yeah.
So you can, make some sausages that are 30 grams of protein, 0 cholesterol, and they have fennel in them and different spices and chili flakes, and it's like eating a brat.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy recreating those experiences for people. It's really fun.
Yeah, because that's got to be cool to like, let's say like someone for like me who's not necessarily a vegan, and I'm eating something there and I'm like, wow, this is incredible. But it's not, it's like, it's supposed to be meat, it's not meat. And I'm like, wow, is it cool to see that kind of reaction? Like people eating your food and being like, how did you do this?
Yeah, it's really fun.
What sort of witchcraft did you do to like make this?
I mean, that's such a simple joy for me. Just to, food brings people together, and food,
that's true too.
For me, food is about creating memories. People coming to have their birthday at Celesta, or people, trying vegan food for the first time.
Yeah.
And it's just so much fun when people are like, oh my gosh, this is so good. Yeah. I feel really, I don't know, it's really exciting.
That's just like the cherry on top of everything else.
I mean, that's why I do it.
Yeah. So speaking of memories, like what are some of your first like defining memories in like food?
Yeah.
Like, can you remember back? I know I read something about your parents being a big influence on that kind of stuff. Yeah.
I have a really, really close family.
Yeah.
And actually they all live near each other except for me. I'm the only one who lives far away.
Straight away.
Yeah, but we're all super close. And my mom always made dinner homemade every night. We had to sit down. There was no TV, and we ate together.
That's good though.
Yeah, it was great because it forced us to connect even when I was a teenager and I was over it.
Don't want to do this.
I don't want to do this. Exactly. But she is a great baker, and she made all our birthday cakes from scratch and casseroles and all that stuff. And then my dad is super adventurous. He'll eat like, I don't know, crickets dipped in chocolate or ants or
he'll
octopus
just go for it.
tentacles or something. Oh yeah. Yeah. And it's kind of a running joke in the family. So he always sort of pushed us to try new things. And my mom always used food as a mechanism to show love.
Yeah.
So one of my earliest, well, I'll share two perhaps. As a little kid, my grandparents, as I mentioned, lived on that farm.
Yeah.
So we lived overseas. So we'd come back to the States for like a couple months.
Yeah.
You know, in the summer, Christmas.
Sure.
And stay there, obviously.
Yeah.
So in the garden, my grandma grew new potatoes, which are those tiny little tender baby potatoes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we'd go down there and I'd help dig them up. And then she would grow corn and peas, English peas, which a lot of people don't eat anymore, but they're peas that you shell. And then you have peas just like the size of frozen peas, but they're shelled. So they're really tender and they have like a really rich, fresh spring note to them. And she would make this cream sauce and cook these baby potatoes with the peas. Yeah. Just salt and pepper. It's like the simplest dish, but it just reminds me of my grandma, you know? So we'd eat that. And she also had bees. And
I interacted with a beekeeper recently, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did a video with him. No, I did a video for him.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, because I work for Taste of Home, which is a food magazine.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, here in Milwaukee. And I'm a video producer, so I shoot other videos. But one of the things I went out to shoot is this local beekeeper who, sorry, I cut off your story.
No,
but like
I'm
he
interested.
goes to people's houses and puts beehives in their
Is that
backyards.
the pod guy?
He's, I don't know.
It's called like bee pod or something.
I gotta find him. It's not bee pod. It's I'll show you afterwards.
Yeah, I'd love to see it.
Yeah. So I went to his house and oh man, beekeepers, you know.
What does that mean?
It's just like I walked up to his house and I don't know, because I was the only one that went. So I first of all felt like I was going to get like murdered because I just go to this guy who says he's a beekeeper. And he's like, yeah, come over. I'll show you my bees.
Come in my basement.
Yeah, he was like that though. He's like, come in my house. Like, this is where I store all this stuff. And he was a really awesome guy, but like he has tons of bees in his backyard.
Wow.
And it freaked me out because it was like I was trying to film and they were like landing on me, and, you know. But, you know, the crazy thing about bees is that it is really true if you got, he explained all this stuff to me, but if you have like a calm queen, you know, it like affects the whole hive, and like all the bees become more calm. So like they were landing on me and walking on me, and then I didn't get stung one time.
Really?
Because he had like a really good queen in that hive or whatever.
That's so cool.
But yeah, he's a beekeeper, and we got to save the bees, you know.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so. Vegans have very complicated feelings about honey.
Yeah.
Some people eat it and some people don't. But as a kid, we would eat. I remember my grandma would pull, you know, the sheet out from the top of the drawer.
Oh, yeah, and you see all the bees walking around.
And she'd break off a piece of honeycomb and we'd suck the honey, and
it's crazy.
It was pretty
that
magical.
You get that close to bees, you know? It's kind of scary as a kid.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've never been afraid of bees. I really love them. I just got a bee tattoo because I like them so
really?
much. Yeah. They just stand for culture and organization and teamwork, and like they're just amazing creatures, you know.
Yeah, and they're just necessary in the in the world. Yeah. What were we talking about? About your
food
family?
memories.
Oh yeah, food memories. There you go.
Yeah. So the second one I'll share. I remember. So I'm 41. So high school was a long time ago for me.
It wasn't that long ago.
It was.
41's not that old.
Okay, keep talking.
Keep saying that.
Keep going. So my dad took us. This is when we lived in DC, to an Indian restaurant, and there weren't Indian restaurants then. Like no one ate sushi in the early 90s. You know, it was sort of a later.
It was very Americanized food all the time. There wasn't a lot of cool cultural food.
Yeah, I mean, even in DC, you know, back then, which is quite diverse. So, yeah, I remember going to an Indian restaurant and just encountering all these new smells and flavors. And they gave us this, which I've never seen this at another place since then, but a tray of all these really, to me, exotic pickles, like different pickled vegetables and fruits. And they had pickled lemons.
Wow.
And I remember my dad cutting off a piece and trying it. It was so sour, but it was like such an interesting flavor I'd never had before. And then it kind of makes you think about the possibilities of, you know, what you can eat or create. Like, what can't you do? You know, like, and I have, this is like really embarrassing to admit, I've never had Indian food before. Oh, really? Yeah. Oh, you're going to have to go interview. You have to leave now, actually. What's happening? You're going to have to go interview the guy who owns the Indian restaurant down the street. Down this street? Yeah. Oh, who is it? Maharaja's right there. Oh, yeah. And they recently opened, right? No, they've been there for years. Who am I thinking of? I don't know. How long have you lived here? I don't know. I'm going to interview you next time. Sam.
Someone actually suggested that once. No, I'm thinking of a completely different restaurant. I think it was one that was ran by refugees.
Oh,
or something
yeah.
like that.
Yeah, that one closed.
Did it already?
Refugee. Oh, no, there's a new one in that space, but I don't know anything about it yet.
Okay.
I'll get back to you on it.
Yeah, I got all confused. So what is your favorite kind of food to, first of all, make, like create? Is there a specific like region that you love? Like you love, I love European food or something like that, or Asian dishes or something.
Yeah. Gosh, I don't know if I'd say there's a favorite. I get sort of obsessive about different regions or flavors, and I often don't experiment with those much at the restaurant because I don't think people will like them. Like right now, I'm really interested in Georgian food, like from the country. What is
Georgian food?
Well, they do a lot of lamb, but that's not what I'm so interested in. They just have really compelling flavors to me. Like they have this spinach dip that has all this fennel in it and walnuts. They use walnuts a lot, and they have these huge, gosh, I forgot what the name of it is, but they have these huge dinners that last hours, and they do multiple toasts during the dinner. And when someone does a toast, they sing or tell this story. Often they're folk stories or stories about, ancestors or what have you. And there's kind of this protocol during the meal where you eat this certain thing after the toast, and you're only supposed to eat and drink things at certain moments during these.
Pressure.
Yeah, it's like
Put
a
that
lot
glass
of rules.
down.
Drop that fork. Yeah, and it's just such a rich and fascinating,
that
culture,
is really cool.
Eastern Europe. So I'm really interested in that. And then I love Chinese food, having lived there and learning it's quite different than, what we experience here for the most part.
Yeah.
Like Sichuan peppercorns. Authentic ones have a numbing spice. They're not hot. It's not a heat like a chili.
You just can't feel your mouth?
Yeah, I mean, in a sense, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, come by the restaurant and I'll give you some.
Just give me a bunch. Oh, like drooling.
Here, eat a whole spoonful.
Yeah, they're really good. Trust me.
Yeah, it's just a really interesting flavor and experience. So I love cooking with those. But I don't often at the restaurant because people don't want to eat that stuff.
If I didn't know what was going to happen to me, but I think that's just my own fears and anxieties. Like if I was eating something and all of a sudden my mouth went out, or I couldn't feel part of it, I'd probably be scared.
Call the health department.
oh no, what's happening? But no, I didn't know that. There's so many cool things that you can create with food. It's like, is it overwhelming sometimes that it's like it literally is endless, that you could pretty much do anything?
I think it's just exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I never get bored. So
yeah. Yeah. So talking about the restaurant, what led up? I know you had a business before. Do you still do that? The pop-ups and stuff like that? No,
it morphed into the restaurant.
So what led up to wanting to get like a brick and mortar, like concrete location? Was it scary to start your own business?
Oh my gosh, yes.
I bet, yeah.
Yeah, so I have been a teacher my whole life. Yeah. I taught for 13 years in Florida and abroad, and then here briefly. Yeah. And then I just was sort of itching for something different. And I've always loved food. I've always loved to cook, and I feel like I've always shown people I care about them through cooking. Yeah. And I was sort of encouraged to, experience that. So I just thought I'd do a pop-up one night and just sort of see how it went. How it went, yeah. Yeah, so I approached Draft and Vessel, which is a really cool beer bar in Shorewood. Yeah. And I said, hey, how about this? I'll cook some food. You keep the money separate. I'll keep the money separate. You don't have to mess with any of that. Mm-hmm. If no one comes, no harm, no foul. Right. If 5 people come, maybe you get 5 new customers. Yeah. Let's just see how it goes. So I made a couple posters, and I made 3 savory dishes and something sweet. I don't even remember what they were. And then I hired a young woman who worked at the coffee shop down the street to be my server.
Oh, nice.
So I set up these camp stoves in their basement next to their beer cooler and all my food. And Alyssa and I were sitting upstairs drinking a beer, hanging out. And then a couple people came in. And I said, oh, I guess I'll go downstairs and get ready. And then all of a sudden she runs down the stairs with like 8 tickets. And I said, oh, this is not what okay, yeah. So it took an hour and we sold out of all the food. Wow. Yeah, it was great. So I thought, well, maybe I'm onto something. So I started doing pop-ups around the city for about a year and a half. Okay. And they just kept getting bigger and bigger, and I kept selling out of food. And it was really fun because a lot of the guys who own these breweries, they haven't had much, or not everyone, but most of them haven't had much experience with vegan food. They're
I
like,
can tell you almost pretty much all of them. Right?
they're like beer dudes, you know?
Yeah.
So here I am. I come in and I'm like, hey guys, can I do this vegan pop-up? And they're like, I guess it's a Tuesday night. Like, what am I going to lose? And then we'd come in and 200 people would show up. And all of a sudden they'd come over and say, hey, can I get you a beer? Can I help you with anything? I'm like, yeah, you can get me a beer.
Keep going.
Yeah. So it ended up being great. And I met a lot of really amazing people. And I learned a lot. Like, a lot of those guys were really kind to me and gave me, when I was thinking about opening the restaurant, they gave me advice and direction or connections.
Yeah.
So it kind of was great because A, I built a customer base before the restaurant opened, and B, I connected myself to some people in the industry to which I had no relationship prior, before the restaurant opened. So it was great.
Yeah. Cause I feel like going into that, it's just intense, like opening your own business and stuff. But if you have a little bit of traction even beforehand. So why did you decide to go to the concrete store? Like,
I think I felt like if I don't do this, I'll regret it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a very clever reason to open a business, but
no, it's a good reason.
It's very personal, I guess, and sincere. So I just felt like if I don't try this, I'm going to regret it. And the worst thing that's going to happen is I'll fail, and hopefully I'll learn something either way. Yeah.
Was your family supportive of it? And like people, were they nervous at all?
Yeah. I mean, they were all very supportive.
Yeah. That's good.
That's my family's MO. They're really supportive about everything,
nice.
Even all the crazy stuff I've done. 'Cause I was always the bad kid, but
really, you're the bad kid?
Hell yeah, I was the bad kid.
Bad in what way? Like
rebellious, I guess. Not, hopefully not mean, but rebellious. Yeah.
Because I was sitting with you right now. I would never guess that you were the bad kid.
Well, the teacher side's coming out right now.
Okay.